Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. It's Tuesday, the 7th of January. If any of you have picked up on some of my previous posts in the last few days, I have mentioned that I'm going to start a new series from tonight, Principles of Good Health. And it's a bit of a free flow session, sessions going forward. So I'm really interested in anything that you would like me to talk about, any questions that you've got, so that I can give you some of my own advice and knowledge that I've learned over the past 10 years in practice. Hi Sabrina, thanks for joining tonight. Anyone else watching, please say hello. Hi Rhiannon. It's obviously a topic I've got to talk about tonight, so I thought just to get things started I would talk about a particular topic. But if you've got any questions on anything that I'm saying or anything else that you want me to try and cover tonight, then please let me know. That would be really helpful. I do have one question I'll try and cover. I will try and do this in 15-20 minutes. I might try and make these longer sessions. But I will get started in a moment. Just give it a moment or so to see if anyone else can join us. I think there's somebody else there. So hello, good evening. I hope you've all had a good day. It's been really windy here, so I hope you haven't got blown away too much with whatever you've been doing today. So as I said, if you've got any questions, you can post them and I'll try and keep a note of any questions that come in, so I'll try and cover them later on. You'll see that I said tonight that I would talk about setting good habits and setting sustainable good habits. I'm doing some talks in the next week and my topic is kickstarting the new year and setting sustainable good habits. So I thought this would be a good thing to talk about tonight as well. So I think I'll make a start, as it's just gone 6 o'clock and some of you are there waiting for me to get going. Just a bit of background really about me, I guess, because I think when we start the new year, there's so much focus, isn't there, often on setting goals, setting resolutions and setting goals, and so much of it is about weight loss, and that's what I want people to get away from, is too much focus about goals. Just a little bit of background about me. I was actually a really overweight child. An overweight teenager. I was really quite chubby. And I guess as I got into my teens and early 20s, and then I started dieting and trying different diets. And I guess, you go on a diet, you come off a diet, and you're never that happy with your weight. So I don't want to make this all about weight, but I just want to sort of give a bit of a picture. I then did get slimmer, but there was too much emphasis on just controlling what I ate. Now I don't think about weight loss. I never weigh myself. I've got 10 years or 15 years experience as a nutritional therapist, including my training and 10 years in practice. And I don't worry if I go off plan about what I eat, and I don't get on the scales. I don't beat myself up. And this is quite a big point I want to cover, because it's all about setting good habits, slowly introducing good habits, and slowly weaning yourself away from bad habits. And that's what I want to cover in the following points. So how do we set lasting good habits? Just a little definition here. A habit is a routine of behaviour that is repeated regularly and tends to occur subconsciously. And that's what a habit is. So as I mentioned before, one thing I do not focus on myself or with any of my sort of clients, particularly around weight loss in particular, is about setting goals, because I think goals can be quite negative. If you set a goal of I'm going to lose a stone in a month, for example, then if you choose to do things that don't fit with that end goal, then you tend to beat yourself up. It creates a lot of negativity around your behaviour and what you're doing day to day. I think it restricts happiness, and it's like an either or approach. You're either on that target goal for weight loss rather than on a journey. And I like to think of this more as being on a journey. So what's the alternative, and how do we set good habits, lasting good habits? So think on some simple actions and processes. So if we're talking about nutrition, you could start to think about, well, where do you particularly think that you go wrong? So if you drink 10 cups of tea and coffee a day, well, that's not a particularly healthy approach to your lifestyle. Then maybe you would start to set a habit of reducing that. You might replace that with herbal teas or try and drinking more water and slowly reducing down the amount of tea and coffee that you're drinking each day. And over time, that becomes more of an ingrained habit because it's something that's not too tricky to start with. You might try and switch brown rice instead of having white pasta. So you might consciously think about, right, I'm just going to try and eat some brown pasta instead of choosing white pasta. Or brown rice, actually, instead of choosing white pasta. So you're still going to eat the starchy carbohydrates, but you're going to try and gently shift that towards something that is healthier. And longer term, these all add up to bigger results overall. If you are struggling to get away from that sweet tooth at the moment and difficulty, biscuits and things like that, then maybe buying some oat cakes will be a very subtle shift and a change in habit from picking up the biscuits to picking up an oat cake that is very low on the GI scale, low on sugar, high in fibre, so it's not going to have the same impact, a better, healthier impact on your body. Maybe if you're eating toast and jam for breakfast, you might think about, okay, now I'm going to start trying to have some porridge. So they're simple things to do. Now what these are, I like to think of these as making small incremental changes. So every time you do a small incremental change in one area, and then maybe a week later or a few days later you bring in a small incremental change in another area, these small incremental changes all add up. They sort of compound these small changes into more significant results. So therefore, instead of thinking about this, I want to lose 1 stone, for example, as an end goal, it's quite a massive thing to aim for. You're just making small changes and small steps along the way, which is healthy and achievable. I picked up from somewhere something that was called 4 laws of behaviour change. So when we're thinking about new habits, 4 laws of behaviour change. The first one is making it obvious. So, you need to make it obvious that you're switching from 10 cups of tea and coffee a day to only trying to have 5 or 4, 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening. So it's making a very conscious change. The second thing is to think about making the changes attractive to you so that you're motivated by it. So start with something that you find attractive and motivating to do. If it's too hard at the moment to give up the biscuits, you're still eating up all the chocolates that are left over, don't focus on that at the moment. Focus on the things that you can do and you can implement the changes and create these new habits in other areas, rather than going for something that's just too challenging to do at the moment, which is sort of this area of failure that I don't like to think about, which feeds very nicely into making it easy and convenient. So I mentioned about cooking brown rice. Well, maybe that's not convenient for you. If you need to come home from work and the thought of cooking brown rice that takes 30 minutes, well, that just might not be easy and convenient. So that might not be a good thing for you to start with. It may be something that you can start with a habit of cooking something at the weekend in batch that you can freeze. And so you've got something readily available to eat during the week. Maybe some sort of, a chili. There's nothing wrong with eating a chili, a veggie chili, coming home and cooking a stir fry that's quick and easy to do and is tasty. That's why it's attractive. So it's convenient, it's attractive, it should be still tasty and nice to eat. And making it satisfying. So as you will all know if you know me well, and what I talk about a lot is it's never about going hungry. So your habits need to ensure that what you're doing doesn't result in you feeling hungry or feel like you're going without. So this idea of switching from normal biscuits to an oat cake, you're still going to be satisfied because you're not actually going without, and it does make these changes. Now, another thing to think about is repeat, repeat, repeat. With children, when you're trying to introduce children to new foods, there is some research to say that you need to introduce a new food to a child about 10 times for their taste buds to get used to it. So if you're thinking about trying out some new foods that you don't normally eat, don't give up straight away. It can take 10 times to eat that food before you readily get used to eating it and accepting it. I often talk about things like eating fennel and chicory, and they're not things that people are eating every day. But if you start to introduce it, not as the main ingredient of your meal, but just as a side portion, a small amount with your meal, then that becomes something you're more likely to like after trying it, maybe not as many as 10 times, but it can take as many as 10 times to try something new. So you need to have some patience with some of this as well to introduce new habits. I talked about making small changes, and incrementally these small changes add up to a lot more. Another thing to think about doing is journaling and reflecting. There's a lot of talk about journaling things in our life and recording how we're feeling on a day-to-day basis. We can record and journal anything we like. It's our personal journal, our personal diary. It may be just this tiniest thing that you've achieved in one day. Well, journal it, make a note of it, say what a success it is that you have done, and reflect back on that on a weekly basis, because again, you are rewarding yourself and giving yourself a pat on the back for the positive things that you've done. And never, ever, ever with this, focus on the failures. There is no such thing as failure. And when you're introducing new habits, it's never going to go linear. It's always going to be a bit up and down, and that's normal. If you're going out with friends, that's normal. If you're going to go out and eat out, and you might go drinking or eating cake, that's normal. That's part of life. That's not a failure, and that doesn't mean you failed in introducing new habits, because when you start to set new habits, you'll just quickly kick back in those habits the following day. It's not an issue at all. One other thing that I was going to mention around this is something called the GTI Matrix, and it's been around since the 1970s. Gordon Training International. I first came across this through horse riding, and it's all to do with, it is to do with habits, or when you're trying to learn something new, like riding a bike. And this will all sound very familiar when I explain this to you, but this does apply when we're trying to introduce new habits. So to start with, we are unconsciously incompetent. So to start with, unless we start thinking about it, like 10 cups of tea or coffee a day, that's our norm. So we're unconsciously incompetent, that's not the right thing to do. Then when we start to become aware of what we're doing, how we're eating, how we're behaving, then we become consciously incompetent. So we become aware and conscious that what we're doing is maybe not the right behaviour that we want to follow. From that, we can start to put new tools and behaviours and habits in place. And at that point in time, you become consciously competent. So you're very much aware of what you're doing. You're aware that you're still focusing on cutting down on your teas and coffees and having herbal teas, or not choosing the biscuits, or not having the white pasta, or whatever it may be. You're consciously doing it, but you're not going for the wrong things. You're going for the right things, but you're consciously doing it. You're mastering the new habits. You're mastering your new techniques, your new skills. And the final part of this matrix is being unconsciously competent. And that's where you're aiming to get to with your new habits, that you'll become completely non-conscious, unconscious, that you're actually following the new habits. You're just going to do it. It just becomes second nature to not drink 10 cups of tea and coffee. That's something you did in the past, and you wouldn't even cross your mind of doing it again. And that's what you're sort of aiming to get to. I hope that makes sense. So that's, 6:15. So that's the sort of the principles I wanted to cover today. Principles of good health, setting new habits. It is something I cover and talk about in my 30-day reset program that I offer to clients, which is all about setting new behaviour changes. If you found this interesting, I would love to get some feedback from you. So please do send me some feedback, either here or private, message me. That would be really, really appreciated. I'm planning to do this next Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 o'clock. I hope this is a good time for people, but it will be available for people to watch again anyway, so I will record it and keep it. If there's anything else you'd like me to cover for next week, because I haven't planned a session, then do let me know, something that's of interest to you. I did have one question that somebody asked me, so I will cover it now. Someone asked me about iron availability. Someone with low iron and wanted to know about how to increase iron availability. The things I would just mention here, I know we're in the middle of vegan era and people are talking about veganism, but I would just say that there's two types of iron. We've got non-heme iron, which is from plant-based sources, and we've got heme iron from animal sources, from your red meat, also from your fish, eggs, things like that. Animal sources, the heme iron is far more readily absorbed and available to the body. It is harder for the body to absorb non-heme iron. So although a diet may be richer overall in iron, it may not be as available. So just be aware of that. So if you are vegan or even vegetarian, you may have to work that bit harder to get your iron. Absorption of iron, whether it's heme or non-heme, is really important. We need vitamin C to absorb it. People tend to think about oranges, but we need to think about the dark green leafy vegetables. We need to think about red peppers, strawberries, berries, I'm not eating so much, and oranges as well, but the dark green leafy veg. So if you're eating meat, fish, or any other type of iron-rich foods, eat it alongside dark green leafy vegetables, red peppers. Kiwi fruits are also quite high in vitamin C as well. And stomach acid. I'm very much focused on gut health. So if people are low on stomach acid, it's much harder for the body to put iron into its most bioabsorbable form, and harder for the body to absorb it. And that's something I focus on a one-to-one basis with clients, to look at whether they've got sufficient stomach acid, hydrochloric acid in the stomach, very important for the absorption of iron. So I hope that's answered that question. Brilliant. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting. And 6 p.m. next Tuesday the 14th, I will be doing my next Facebook Live, Principles of Good Health. Anything you want to hear, please let me know. Look forward to speaking to you next week. Bye.